Hey everybody, I'm Canadian Operator, and this is the Magpul Bipod, and it's what we're going to be reviewing today. It's a pretty nice little bipod that I've picked up from my Tika T3X TAC A1, and before you say anything, yes, that video is still coming. I've got a lot on the pipeline, so I do appreciate your patience as the videos in the next couple of weeks are going to be a little bit more spread out than you might be used to. Nevertheless, if this is the kind of stuff that you like, hey, consider subscribing. We'd love to have you around. So that being said, let's talk about some of the features of this thing, some things that I like and don't like, and we'll conclude with whether I think this is worth your money, as it's definitely not cheap. Let's get started. All right, so first and foremost, let's just get this out of the way. Of course, we don't talk about the price here, fellas. As you know, we are a wife-friendly channel, but this will set you back about half a 1022. You know what that is, and if you don't, you can look it up, so that'll give you kind of a good idea as to what this will set you back. Now, they don't have any different variants in terms of style. They're all really the same style. However, they do have different variants of mounting points. They do have a standard 1913 pick rail. They've recently released a stud version as well, so if you've got a bit of a more traditional rifle, you can use it with your swivel stud mounts. That works too. The one I've got here is, of course, the traditional MLOK, as Magpul likes to call it. MLOK is extremely universal. There's MLOK slots on just about everything out there these days. So if you've got MLOK, you'll be picking up the same one that I have. Pretty straightforward. You've just got the two little mounting points here. So you've got one here and one there. And just in case you're concerned or curious or cautious or whatever, and you haven't seen the manual, essentially you want the screws to be coming up from the bottom. And you have these little pieces here that will attach. They'll go in, essentially, let me see if I can get them oriented the right way. There we go. So they'll go in that way. Right? And as you tighten them in, they're going to turn this way, and that is what's going to lock on the inside of the MLOK slot there. So that's how it's going to hold it together. You've got a nice little rubber pad in here as well to help protect any Cerakoting or anodizing or paintwork that you might have on your rifle. So that's quite nice to see as well. In terms of the weight, we're looking at about half a kilo, about 450 grams or so, or about 11 ounces. So not too bad. It doesn't add a whole lot of weight. There's definitely a lot of polymer here, but the nice thing is that the inside of this, the frame, is made of 6061 T6 aluminum, so that's going to give you pretty decent rigidity, with one caveat, which we'll get to towards the end of the video. Now, in terms of the length here, well, let's first of all talk about how you get this open. So it would essentially be facing you this way, right? So these buttons on the back would be facing you, or the towards the trigger, and then this part here would be facing out towards the barrel. I believe that's right. Yep, that's right. I mean, obviously you could mount it whatever way you want technically, but that's the way that I've got it mounted. And yeah, pretty easy. You've got these buttons here, one on this side and one on this side. And all you do is you just push that in and rotate forward, push in and rotate forward. And then you've got that sitting basically under your handguard essentially, and facing forward just like this. And when you're ready to bring it down, it literally takes almost no effort to bring it back down. And it feels really nice. It snaps into place. There doesn't seem to be too much wiggle room. Again, we'll talk about the wiggle in a little bit, because there's definitely some here. But the fact that this is coming in at probably a third less than what you'd pay for a Harris, and don't get me wrong, I don't want to slam Harris here. Harris makes some incredible bipods. Ask me how I know. I have a couple, okay? But I just like the way this looks, and I like some of the extra features, which we'll get into in a second here. So let's go ahead and move on to the height. You do have height adjustability here. You're gonna push the buttons on the back here, right? So you're gonna push that in. Just gonna give it a little wiggle so you can see, so they'll just snap into place, just like that. And you've got about 4 inches of total adjustment. I think that's the last one. That's the last one. Yeah. That's the last one there. So that's going to be basically what it looks like between when it's fully retracted and then fully deployed, right? And then on the inside here, I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to see that, but you've got these little grooves here, and essentially that's what it's going to follow. So quite a few in there, and that equates to about 4 inches of travel in general. You're going to go from about 6.3 inches as it is up to approximately 10.3 inches when everything's fully out and deployed. So there's a pretty good range of motion there for various different kinds of rifles and various different kinds of shooting styles, whether you're a bench rest shooter, whether you're prone. I feel like you might really take advantage of this. It seems to have some good flexibility in terms of how you want to set it up. Now, speaking of which, you're going to have some feet down here. These are just some standard rubber feet that'll come with it. But if I've got this oriented the right way, and I do, I'll see if I can maybe punch in on this a little bit for you guys. We've got a little pinhole in here, and we've got a pin inside. And if you move that pin out of the way, you just use a little pin punch. In fact, maybe I'll link my pin set, my pin punch set in the description below if you want to go check it out. I think everybody should have one because they're so useful and they're dirt cheap. But in any case, you want to get rid of the pins in here. That will free up the legs or the little feet here. The feet will pop off. And this thing is compatible with any Atlas compatible feet. So if you've got an Atlas bipod or anything that is compatible with it, some extra feet, maybe you're the kind of guy that shoots in the grass and you're prone all the time and you need a little bit of spiked feet action going on there, you can definitely change those out. So that's nice. Again, what I was saying before, it tends to do quite well, sort of being flexible towards the shooter's preferences, I guess you could say, right? On the bottom here, let me actually just adjust this really quickly here. There we go. So on the bottom here, we've got a nice big wheel. Let's see if I can just undo that. This is a nice big fat wheel. What I really don't like about a lot of these other bipods that are out there is that they have this dinky ass little wheel. It's tiny. And first of all, it's mounted this way so that when you've got the bipod on your rifle, you're trying to kind of get in under your handguard and trying to adjust for the tilt, right? Because this thing has about 50 degrees of roll, and we've also got about 40 degrees of pan on this, which is nice. I'm not a personal fan of the pan feature, and there is a way to lock it, which I'll show you in a minute here. But having this on the bottom is fucking huge. Like, Magpul, thank you. Thank you, because I love me a Harris bipod, but I mean, it's all on the back here, and like, yeah, you could probably use a tool or something like that to get it tightened up if you don't want it to move, if you're that kind of guy. I am. So it just kind of makes it a bit of a pain in the ass. But this being on the bottom, you can bring the feet up and you can just adjust it to whatever you want. And then, you know, you've got that, I don't know how well I'm going to be able to show you here, but you've got that tilt over here. Maybe I have to just undo this a little bit more. Yeah. So you've got that tilt here. I'm not sure how well you're able to see that. And that's, like I said, about 50 degrees of tilt. We do have a pan feature as well. And if you don't want it to pan, or essentially, I guess I would call that a yaw, right? It's like, if you're into aviation, you'll know what I'm talking about. So you've got a yaw, and then you've got a roll, which is like that, right? So if you don't want the yaw, what you want to do is, the best thing to do is to get this thing off of your rifle. You want to undo this all the way, as much as it'll go, and it's captive, so it's not going to go anywhere. So let me get a little closer here so you can see. So you see this little piece that comes out right there? So all you want to do is you want to lift that up and you want to twist it 180 degrees, okay? And it's not going to matter in terms of the orientation of the MLOKs here, because they will lock, they're universal. They'll lock whether they're facing this way or that way. It doesn't really matter. But that is how you're going to change it from being free in terms of being able to have that pan feature to the point where if you want to just lock it, you don't want it to pan automatically, you can do that as well. And that's a really good feature. Another one on the bottom here is we've got a little piece of rubber here, which is really, really nice. This piece of rubber is great for if you just want to put your gun down, or you want to rest it against the shooting rest that you have, or you want to rest it against maybe a table, depending on where you are. You're not going to be marring this up because you've got a nice piece of rubber under here. So you can literally just rest the front of your rifle on whatever table or whatever you have when the legs are in the upward position. So that's also really, really nice. Other than that, there's not too much else to say about it. It's a really nice bipod. I'm going to just put it down as we kind of finish off the video here, talking about, you know, the pluses, the downsides. It's a bit of a wobbly bipod, and that's the only thing that I kind of don't like too much. It does have, I'd say, about 1/4 to 1/2 an inch of wobble each way. And some people might not like that. I've kind of gotten used to that, especially with my rifle being so heavy. It helps to absorb a lot of the recoil, but there's still a little bit of that recoil there. And I find that I actually quite like that the bipod can sort of compensate because it's got that wiggle, as opposed to there's absolutely no wiggle room there and the entire bipod comes back and basically moves, and then I have to readjust. So if I were to frame that in a positive light, then I would say, yeah, that's where it's kind of a positive experience. But a lot of people are not going to be expecting the bipod to be a little bit wiggly, and they might not like that. In terms of the positives, I mean, I love MLOK. There's nothing about MLOK that I really dislike, except that it can be a little bit of a pain in the butt to get these lined up properly. But once you get them in and they lock into place, I mean, the thing is not going anywhere. It is super sturdy. I do also like the oversized controls. I've got big hands, so fellas, if you've got big hands as well, you're probably gonna like this. There's a little bit of texture on here as well. Again, I'll show a little B-roll here so you guys can see what that looks like. But this has got some nice texture on it, and I've got really big paws, and I've got what I'd like to think is pretty good grip strength. Lots of practice. Yeah, it's exactly what you're thinking. But sometimes I feel like with a traditional knob like this, especially when it's placed here instead of here, on a traditional bipod, I don't really have the leverage that I need to make sure that the bipod is not rolling, right, as I'm getting my shot together. So I don't mind the roll, but I like to get it set up to where I'm in line with that target, and as soon as I'm in line, I want to lock it in so I'm not moving around, right? Because the more of a movement you have in between when you're preparing to take your shot and when you actually do end up pulling the trigger, you're basically introducing additional variables of being able to not be as accurate as you could be. So being able to lock that in effectively is really, really important. At least for me it is, right? So having this again on the bottom, absolutely huge. And I can't think of any other bipod that I own or that I've seen that does this. And it's just really smart. The little rubber thing on the bottom again, it's a nice to have. It's not essential because you're not going to be probably putting it down very often. But if you need to rest it on something, you know you're not going to mar up the finish on your gun. You're not going to mar up the finish on this thing. This is essentially, like I said, 6061 T6 aluminum, hard anodized with an injection molded polymer on the outside. So it's not going to be, a problem really. If you kind of bang this around a little bit, it's going to be pretty durable. The other thing that I like, of course, the big buttons on the back and, the long extension. Now, just so you know, that long extension will exacerbate the wobble a little bit. I'll show you what I mean here. You can see, like, yeah, it's quite a bit of wobble, right? So if you like a little wobble once in a while, you'll be okay. If you don't like wobble, I don't know, guys. I'm thinking maybe stick with a Harris or another bipod that's absolutely completely rigid. I really thought that this was a bad thing at first, but I've started to warm up to the idea of, it's okay to have a little bit of wobble. And the thing is, when you're shooting, it's not wobbly when you're shooting because you can essentially push your rifle in or pull your rifle against the wobble, and you can absolutely get a stable rifle, right? But then again, if you're a PRS shooter, if you're someone who's shooting just purely for accuracy and there is nothing more in the world important to you, you're one of these guys going out and shooting king at 2 miles, this is not the bipod for you, okay? You're gonna have to get yourself a proper rest, and you wanna level up your rifle as well with a rear rest as well. A lot of rifles, like mine for example, come with a little section of 1913 pick rail on the stock where you're able to put like a little mini bipod, mini tripod or something on the back to level out that gun and make very small and very discreet adjustments so that you can be on target every time. If you're not that discerning and you just want a nice, reliable, durable bipod for your rifle, yeah, man, this is awesome, and I would absolutely recommend it. They're not on sale very often. If they are, the discount is not very steep at all, but I've really been enjoying it with my Tikka. So when you see the full review, then you'll be able to kind of see it in action because we are going to be taking it out to the range, part of the reason why it's going to take a little bit longer. That being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already, make sure to join our Discord community. Link is going to be down in the description, of course. Also, like, share, do the usual YouTube stuff. It really does help us out a lot. If you're not a subscriber, please become a subscriber. It's free, and it lets me know that you're interested in this kind of stuff. And lastly, if you want to go a little bit above and beyond, we do have a super thanks button. If you want to buy me a beer or a cup of coffee or something like that, thank you very much in advance. If you have the means, I appreciate it. If you'd rather have something a little bit more in return for your investment in the channel, we do have an Etsy shop, also linked in the description. And all the designs are my own, and we have some new designs in, and we also have a sale going on right now. I don't know, I think it's the 19th today, until the 30th of November 2023. So if you're watching this video in that point of time, if you head over to the Etsy shop, there is a 15% off sale in the spirit of Black Friday, and everything is on and there is no minimum. So you just pick up whatever you want. We got some mugs, some shirts, and a really fun sticker. So you gotta check it out. Thank you again for watching. I appreciate you. Hope to see you in the next one. And until then, happy shooting.